And thank you so very much for coming today to this little model class. First and foremost, my name is Ricardo Rodriguez La Rosa Prat. I'm going to type it in case you want to remember that. That's my name. And I am a verbal Gmat teacher for Gmat Dudes. If you let me tell you a little bit about myself, I have been a teacher for the past 15 years. I am a broad teacher. I've taught everything, and I teach everything from Gmat, TOEFL, GRE, IELTS, SAT, and I also teach English. And I've been teaching for the past 15 years. However, I have 6 years experience teaching the Gmat. Now, if you wanna know a little bit about, I love to tell you a little bit about the Gmat course and how the classes are taught. But before that, I would like to tell you a little bit about the Gmat. Okay, if you can hear me and you've got a microphone that you can use, feel free to participate in the conversation. Okay, I'm gonna be asking you some questions, so you can either speak up or you can also type your answers on the chat box. Okay. Perfect, Carol. It's good to know you can hear us. Welcome. Welcome to the class today. Now, I'm going to share my screen with you. There you go. Perfect. Geez, what's this? It's a tricky thing going on. Okay, perfect. All right. Here we go. First of all, welcome to Gmat Dudes and welcome to the model class. To begin with, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the test, about the Gmat. I wanted to ask you, does anybody know anything about the Gmat? For example, do you know what the Gmat is? That's okay. I'm sorry, what's your name? Your name is Saul, right? Perfect, Saul. Very nice to meet you. Now, the Gmat is a standardized exam that is taken by MBA applicants mainly, and it's a test that evaluates your reasoning abilities. So basically, whenever you take the test, the result that you get, your Gmat score, is going to be representative of your reasoning capabilities. Of course, depending on the university or the business program that you're applying to, the requirements, the score requirements will be different. Some universities require 650 as the Gmat score. However, some other universities, perhaps the most prestigious ones, require very high scores, such as 700 points, 710, and even 720 points. So Saul, I want to ask you, do you know how many points you need on your Gmat? Yeah, sure, you. You're the only one who's talking, so yeah. That's okay. Eventually, you want to find out, though, because and this goes for everybody, whatever your Gmat plans are and whatever your study plans and your class plans are going to be in the future, a lot of it is going to depend on how many points you require. Of course, a person who only requires 630 points is not going to have the same pressure as someone who perhaps has to get 700 or 720 points. So again, the Gmat is a test that basically evaluates how capable your reasoning capabilities are. Now, the Gmat is divided into 4 sections, as you can see them on my screen. Check them out. Perfect. So the first section of the Gmat is known as the essay section, officially known as the analytical writing assessment. For this section, you're going to have to complete an essay, basically. You're going to have to write an essay. And for that essay, you're going to be given 30 minutes. The second section of the GMAT is the integrated reasoning section, also known as the IR section. For this section, you're going to be given 12 questions, and you're going to be given 30 minutes. This section evaluates your multiple source reasoning, graphic interpretation, two-part analysis, and table analysis capabilities. But the interesting thing is that even though the GMAT is divided into 4 sections, it is only 2 sections that are going to create your GMAT score. Those sections are the quantitative section and the verbal section. So for the analytical writing assessment and the integrated reasoning, you're going to be given scores, but those scores are going to be independent from your GMAT official score. Now, the quantitative section is a section that comprises 31 questions, fundamentally mathematics, including geometry. And you're going to have to resolve data sufficiency and problem-solving questions. For the section, you will be provided with 62 minutes. Now, let us talk about my section. I do not teach quantitative, but I teach verbal. So, do you know anything about the verbal section in the GMAT? That's okay, no worries. Yeah, then I'm actually really happy that you're here today, because it's gonna be good for you to know a few things about it. I look. Oh, that's good. That's good. You can always take a screenshot too. If you want to get some, if you want to keep this for yourself. Does anybody else who has access to a microphone want to tell me anything about the verbal section? That's okay. I guess no one has a microphone, but that's fine. The verbal section, a lot of people who take the GMAT think of the verbal section as an English exam. But as a matter of fact, the verbal section of the GMAT does not evaluate English proficiency. Of course, during your application process, you're going to have to take an English test, but that English test is known as the TOEFL. The verbal section for the GMAT does not evaluate English proficiency. Matter of fact, it evaluates verbal reasoning. So it's going to evaluate you based on 3 sections. The first one, reading comprehension. The second one, critical reasoning. And the last one, sentence correction. Those 3 sections are going to be mixed throughout the exam, which is going to last 65 minutes. And through those 65 minutes, you're going to be given 36 questions to answer. So basically, this test is going to take you 3 hours and 7 minutes. Of course, not including the break times, right? But just remember, it is from the quantitative and verbal section that you get the GMAT scores that you are looking for. And finally, an advice I would give you is, if you're not sure of how many points your programs require, you probably want to find out as soon as possible. It is very common that people who apply for an MBA have more than one university in mind, but you probably want to do some research and figure out what's the range of scores that you will be required. Now, the interesting thing about the verbal section is that it is by far the most difficult section in the GMAT. So what I teach is the most difficult part. And the reason for that is that basically everyone who applies to an MBA has a quantitative background. I mean, all of us have to study algebra, arithmetics, and things such as geometry in high school. And most of you, through university, had additional mathematics teaching. However, the topics from the verbal section are topics that most applicants have never been exposed to. Okay, Saul, do you have any questions so far? That's good. I'm so sorry. I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions today because I think no one else's microphones are working. So sorry for that in advance. Oh, cool! I just heard a lady's voice.
Yes. Hi, Ricardo. I'm Carla. I have one question. I heard that the Gmat exam is a tricky one. I think that if you start answering in a correct way, the exam turns like a little bit difficult. I don't know if you can explain us a little bit more about that point.
Carla, you're asking a very important, a very interesting question, as a matter of fact. One of the things that make most people suffer when they take the GMAT is that this is not a regular standardized test. It is a test that works with something called question adaptiveness. Now, if you wonder what question adaptiveness is, question adaptiveness means this. While you are answering your questions, the algorithm of the exam is going to establish if the difficulty of the next questions has to be increased or decreased. So the difficulty of the test is going to be working simultaneously with you while you are taking the exam. So for example, if I'm doing excellent in the test and I'm answering all of my questions correctly, Carla, you know what happens?
I don't know, maybe the algorithm gives you like more difficult questions and you start like losing some points. I think I haven't taken the exam, but I think that's how this works.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. That's correct. So when you're answering your questions correctly, then the GMAT is going to make the following questions harder. And if you answer those questions correctly again, the exam gets harder. So this exam does not reward good students. This exam pushes good students to the maximum of their capabilities. I guess that's an interesting thing about GMAT. It is not only theoretically a difficult exam, it is also psychologically a difficult exam. Because when you're doing great, the exam gets harder and harder until it reaches your breaking point, the point in which you start failing. Carla, have you got any more questions?
Is there any way to take the exam without reaching that point that you are too tired to answer or you start to fall apart? I don't know. Is there any way to avoid that?
Yes, you have to apply yourself. That's basically what it is. There are several strategies to deal with the psychological pressure of the exam. But the first thing you want, Carla, is you want to have a good theoretical foundation. You want to know how to deal with the data sufficiency problems, the problem-solving exercises, the reading comprehension, the critical reasoning, and the sentence correction problems. When you have a good theoretical foundation to do the exam, then what's going to happen is that you're going to be able to deal with the difficulty or problematic more efficiently. But of course, it takes a lot of training to be able to deal with this psychological pressure. So I guess that when you take the lessons, your teacher will figure out how best help you to deal with such pressure. Saul, Carla, have you got any further questions, or shall we move on to the next part of the presentation?
Not from my side, but maybe one last question. How much time do we have to spend in order to get like a good score? I think that some people just use like 1 month, some other like 6 months. Is there any average or maybe like a prudent period in order to get a good score?
Well, that's a very complex question, and it definitely has no simple answer. Probably my most objective answer would be take a theoretical program, learn how to do GMAT questions, and then you can take simulations. GMAT simulations. The GMAT simulations are going to show you what your main problems are. Like, what are those problems that Carla, particularly Carla, has to work out. Of course, the recommendations I would give to you are not the recommendations I would give, for example, to Saul. Everybody is a different person, and everybody responds differently to the exam. So through your GMAT preparation, you're going to experience problems that will be different from those that Saul is going to have. You see what I mean?
Yes. Thank you for the answer.
Sure, no problems. Okay, so we're moving on. So right now I have communication with Carla and Saul. Does anybody else have access to their microphone so that they can also ask questions? I will take your silence as a no. Okay, we're moving on then. Interesting. Now, how is the GMAT graded? The GMAT is graded from 200 points up to 800 points. So that means that there is no score that can go under 200 points, and there is no higher score over 800 points. Of course, no MBA program requires 800 points. The most prestigious business programs require anything over 700 points. Okay, so you don't have to get 800 points. But as I mentioned previously, it's important that you know how many points the programs that you want to apply to require, because a lot of your study strategy is going to have to be based on that. Okay, that's it. Now, let's talk about my section, the verbal section. As I mentioned before, I have 6 years experience teaching the verbal section. And I do have to tell you, after 6 years, the verbal section still impresses me, because it's a highly complex section in the GMAT. And as I mentioned before, the section is divided into the verbal section is divided into 3 more sections: sentence correction, reading comprehension, and critical reasoning. If you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about sentence correction. Okay. For the sentence correction section, you're going to have a total of 13 to 14 questions. Okay. The sentence correction is definitely the most asked section in the verbal. Now, what does sentence correction evaluate? The sentence correction section evaluates your grammar abilities, and by grammar, I don't mean like basic English grammar. I mean like very highly sophisticated grammar. Basically, they want to know if your grammar is fundamentally perfect. So you have to have a seriously good theoretical foundation. Sentence correction also evaluates meaning. What do I mean by meaning? It evaluates if you're able to recognize clear messages from confusing messages. And finally, concision. Now, a sentence correction exercise requires you to apply the principle of concision, which means to present a message using only the necessary number of words, no more, no less. But you know what? It's kind of, let's do that. Instead of giving you so much explanation about the sentence correction section, let's do an exercise. As you can see, here you are presented with one sentence. It's only one. I know there is a comma, but technically that is only one sentence. And as you can see, a fragment of the sentence is underlined. Now take a look at the choices. You are given 5 choices. And as a matter of fact, in both the quantitative and the verbal section, for every question that you are given, you will always be provided with 5 choices, no more. Now, what do you have to do? You have to pick the best possible replacement for the original underlying fragment. If you take a look, you're going to notice that choice A is exactly the same as the underlying fragment. So if you pick choice A, you are stating that the original sentence was fine, that it was the best possible choice. Choices B, C, D, and E introduce a change or a number of changes to the original underlined fragment. I'm going to give everyone 2 minutes to try and resolve this exercise. Then I'm going to tell you how I would do it. You may begin trying to resolve it. Hang on, I'm going to use my timer. Let's say now. One minute left. All right, Saul, what do you think? What answer would you pick? Okay, we'll check it out together, don't worry. What about you, Carla? What would you pick?
I believe it's letter C.
Okay, we'll check it together then. Interesting. Different answers. Now, the first thing you want to know is that in a sentence correction sentence, and I mean the sentence, there must always be one subject and one verb. Carla, what's a subject? What is the definition of a subject?
It's the person or the object that executes something. It's like the, I don't know, it could be like a person, animal, like anything that the thing we will talk about in the sentence.
Yeah, I actually like the definition very much. That is a definition of a subject. Carla, can you identify the subject in the original sentence?
I think it is. I don't know how to pronounce it, but hippopotamus. Hippopotamus.
That's a good pronunciation, actually. Very good. That's a good
Okay,
pronunciation. Oh,
thank
perfect.
you.
So there we go. This is our subject. And I want to ask you a question. Is the subject singular or plural?
Well, it can be both. It depends of how the sentence is established or written.
Good. But what do you think about this one in particular?
In particular, I think it's singular, and that's why I think it's letter C. But maybe it's because you don't talk about all the animals together. You just talk about this specific type, which is the one single hippopotamus that tries to explain the collection of all these kind of animals. So with one, you can explain how all these kind of animals like work or operates, or I don't know, has a particular something particular. In this case, like they are the most feared.
That's an interesting explanation. And I'm not going to disagree with you. Right now, you're thinking about the semantics, the message that the sentence should try to present. But I want to ask you then another question. Look at this. There. And I want to ask you, there, is it singular or plural?
Okay, yeah, it's plural. So that's
You see?
like the trick of the sentence, I think.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
you see what just happened. The part that is not underlined is telling us if we should say hippopotamuses or hippopotamus. It's telling us what to do. In this case, because there is plural, we have to make the subject plural as well. So, Carla, what choices do we have to eliminate?
Yes, B and C, which
Yes.
were our answers.
Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. It happens sometimes. Because this is singular and we need plural, we're going to have to eliminate choices B and C as well. And we're left with choices.
And also, maybe also E.
I know exactly what you're trying to do. I know exactly what you're trying to do. And we're going to do it in 1 second. Okay? But because that's an interesting thing. But for now, guys, as you can see, if the sentence is forcing us to choose between singular and plural, we have to follow their wishes. There is plural. So the sentence has established that the subject has to be plural. The choices B and C, hippopotamus, present us with a singular subject. Not a good idea. Now, I want to switch to Saul. Saul, are you still around? Cool. So, Saul, do you know what's the definition of a birth? Yeah, that's good. That's actually I know it sounds oversimplistic, but yeah, you're right. A birth is an action. It's an action performed by the subject. So if I say Maria listens to music, then Maria is the subject and listens is the verb, because listens is the action that Maria is performing. That's actually really good, man. That's really good. Now, I want you to take a look at the verb in the sentence. Can you identify the verb in the sentence? The verb for the subject Hippopotamuses. Once again. Ah, but death is a noun, it's a sustantivo. Death is not an action. Oops, someone's texting us. Let's check it out. Someone's on the chat. Let's see what's going on. Sorry, guys. Ah, Leslie. Nice, Leslie. That's actually quite right. Yes. Ah, Nicolas, you can hear me too. But Nicolas and Leslie, you don't have microphones, right? I'm assuming that. Because if you have microphones... Hi. Leslie, is that you?
Yes.
Hi, teacher.
Yes, it's me.
Cool.
I think account is the verb.
Okay. Ah, you know what? That's interesting. Nicolas, can you speak as well?
So, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, there you go. The party's bigger now. That's nice. So, Leslie, yeah, sure. I'll give you the floor. Hippopotamuses is the subject. What did you say the verb was?
Account.
Nice. Account. So this is the interesting thing as well. You know that the subject can be singular or it can be plural, right? For example, table is singular and tables is plural. Well, guess what? The same happens with verbs. Verbs can also be singular or plural. Now, this question goes to everybody, okay? Because it's actually an interesting thing, but the verb listen. Nicolas, this one goes to you. Listen, is it singular or plural?
Maybe both.
Actually, I wish, because that will make our life easier, but no. Listen is plural. Listens is singular.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, that's weird, right? That's kind of contradictory. But you can say the people, plural, listen, plural, to music. Or you can say the person, singular, listens, singular, to music. So, Leslie, account, right here, account, is it singular or plural?
It's plural.
It's plural. And that's the problem we have at this point. Hippopotamuses is plural, but an account is plural too. And that's good. But Leslie, there is a choice. One of our choices has a subject and a verb that don't have the same number. Can you identify it for us, please? Take your time. It's a difficult question.
One of the choices don't have the same number.
Yeah.
Well, maybe D.
Let's see. Hippopotamuses is plural.
Yes, and
is plural.
Is plural.
So that's okay. We're good.
Oh, E.
So hippopotamuses, plural, but account is singular. So no way, Jose, we cannot accept that. Because an important principle in the relationship of subject and verb is that the subject and the verb have to agree in number. So if you have a singular subject, then you need a singular verb. And if you have a plural subject, then you need a plural verb. So that's the problem. E has to go. Okay. Now, you guys are doing great so far. Now, Nicolas, I'm going to ask you then, and take your time. Would you pick choice A or choice D, and why?
I take the D.
D, why? Why not A?
Because animals.
Nice. Good. You remember that before, where was it? There. I mentioned that in sentence correction, you have to pay attention to the meaning. In other words, the sentence that you choose, the choice that you choose, has to present a clear message, not a confusing message. And that is precisely the problem in choice A. They say hippopotamuses, which is plural, but then they say animal, which is singular. That's kind of confusing because hippopotamuses are not animal. They are animals. So choice A has to go again, and voila, we pick choice D. Right? So guys, how are you feeling so far? Is everything clear? Any questions? Any doubts? Any complaints? That's good to know. You know, it's interesting. I remember when I first started preparing for the GMAT, like 6 years ago, guys, I thought that sentence correction was extremely weird. But with a lot of practice and learning my theory, like remembering my theory and practicing a lot, you get really used to it. But yeah, in the beginning, it feels kind of weird. But with a lot of practice, guys, you're gonna be fine. So let's see. That's a lot of theory. Let's do an exercise first. Guys, that one is for you. I'm going to give you, I don't know, 1.5 minutes. Try to do it, and then we're going to check it together. You may begin now. Okay, if you have an answer, feel free to tell me. Then we're going to do this exercise together again. Okay, well, that was a lot of time, guys. Let's check it out. Saul, do you have a choice in mind? Okay, I'm gonna give it an S for Saul. Leslie, what do you think?
I'm agree with the letter C.
Okay. Oh my gosh, you're in for a huge surprise, people. Nicolas, what do you think?
I think maybe D, but I'm not sure.
Okay. And how about you, Carol? What do you think?
I think is letter D also.
D. Huh, interesting. I have my class divided in two. Who's right, who's wrong? Unless everyone is wrong, I don't know. Is anyone else in the class who would like to participate?
Me, I think it's letter D also.
D. Lady, what's your name?
Carla.
Carla. So
Yeah.
do we have two Carlas, or is it my imagination?
No, there's one Carla and one Carol.
Yes. Carol.
Yes.
Okay. I have a student in one of my groups who's named Carol. Okay, so Carol with a C. Perfect. Okay, nice of you to join us, Carol. So now, you know, going back to what I just taught you, and if you have a piece of paper, you can write this down.
Okay.
Remember, every sentence requires a subject and it requires a verb. That's like super basic. Every sentence requires a subject and a verb. But the trick is that the subject and the verb have to agree in number. So if your subject is singular, your verb has to be singular. If your subject is plural, your verb has to be plural. But you know what's one of the oldest Gmat tricks? Sometimes they try to confuse people. Gmat tries to confuse people, and they give you subjects that are difficult to understand. Let me show you. Saul, what is the subject of the sentence? Oh, that's the trick. Okay. Of is a preposition. I know, you're going to kill me. You're going to be like, dude, you're talking about prepositions now. I know. But of is a preposition. Of, with, at, next, to, under, from, between. There are words that are known as prepositions. And don't worry, if you take classes with me, I'm going to tell you this in detail, right? I'm going to explain this to you in way more detail. But of is a preposition. Of grapes is a prepositional phrase. So guess what? Of grapes is not the subject. Because prepositional phrases are never the subjects. So what is really the subject? Yes, harvest. You say harvest is the subject. And does anyone know what harvest means in Spanish?
Yes.
What does it mean?
Cosecha.
Yeah, it means cosecha. Now, think about the word harvest. Is harvest singular or plural?
Singular.
Singular. Saul, I'm sorry, I'm not going to let you off the hook quite yet. We know that harvest is the subject. Would you be so kind and identify the verb of the sentence?
Who?
Sorry? Saul, if it's okay with you. Sure. Can you identify the verb or verbs of the sentence, in the sentence? Good, that's a good one. That's a verb. Do we have any additional verbs? Yeah, there you go. Now, this is another verb. Yeah, I didn't mention it before, but I'll mention it now. In a sentence, you can have more than one verb for your subject. For example, you can say, Maria listens to music and plays piano. So 2 verbs for Maria. It's okay, it's possible. Now, I'm going to ask Carol.
Yes.
Carol, where? Is it singular or plural?
Plural.
Good. Take a look at harvest. Was it singular or plural?
Singular.
So we have a problem, Houston, right?
Yes.
So that's a problem, guys. We don't say that the harvest where, we say the harvest was. So, Carol, what choices do I have to eliminate right away?
We could eliminate A, B, and C.
Yes, very good. So goodbye, goodbye, and goodbye. Guys, now you have choices D and E. And I'm going to teach you one more cool thing. Have you ever heard of an idiom? And I don't mean idiom like idioma, like Spanglish, English, French, Russian. I mean idiom. Idiom is a particular combination of words. For example, do you know what's the idiom for the verb listen? Listen to. Yeah. If you're going to say listen, you have to say listen to. Because I cannot say Maria listens music. No way. I have to say Maria listens to music. Listen to is an idiom. Nicolas, do you know the idiom for look?
Look up.
Look at. Yeah, that's a good one, man. Very good. Carla, do you know the idiom for think?
Well, it has a lot. One is think about.
Think about. What other ones do you know? You know, you can also say think of. Yeah, you can say think about, or you can say think of. It's fundamentally the same thing. And guys, do you know the idiom for the verb begin?
To?
Begin. Okay, anyone who wants to tell me?
To?
Begin to.
Yeah, you too. Very good. Oopsie daisy. Begin to decrease. Began to decrease. Not began decreasing. That's not the idiom. Echo has to go. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our answer. It's fun, right? Doing sentence correction can be fun sometimes. Sometimes, not always. And that's the thing, you know, when you're studying sentence correction, I mean, let me re-explain myself. What I'm doing right now, what I'm doing is I'm giving you a model class. Okay, so this is the dynamics that I like to have with my students. I don't like to do all the class like a monologue. I wanna, I want to interact with you because you guys know a lot of things, and it's okay that you contribute with those things. But in a normal class, I wouldn't teach you so many things together. I would separate the classes into categories. So for example, in one class, I would teach you subject and verb agreement. In another class, I would teach you modifiers. In another class, I would teach you pronouns. And I would teach you like the rules for all of those topics. I think that in this presentation, we actually have like a list of those topics. Hang on. There, great. These are the fundamental topics that you need to master if you're going to do a good sentence correction. So you need to know modifiers and their rules, parallelism and its rules, comparisons and their rules. You need to understand the concept of idioms. You need to understand verbs, you know, like the tenses of the verb, the mood of the verb, the voices of the verb. You need to know the relationship of subject and verb. You need to know how to play with pronouns, how to play with connectors, and how to use punctuation. And here you can see a pie chart of how those topics, or how relevant those topics are in an exam. One thing I can tell you, and I can give like proof of this from my experience, modifiers is the most common topic in sentence correction. And yeah, I agree with this as well. Parallelism is the second most common topic. Okay, so you have to learn them all. Now, how long? Hang on. Now, this is just a regular exercise, right? And the million-dollar question is, how long can you take doing an exercise of sentence correction? Do we take 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes? Well, ideally, 1 minute. You should take about 30 seconds to read, to understand, and to analyze the original sentence. And you should spend about 30 seconds eliminating the wrong choices until you identify the correct one. You probably know that at the present time, the Gmat is being taken virtually online. And probably the best way for you to eliminate choices is not to do it on paper, is using your fingers. So for example, this finger is choice A, choice B, choice C, choice D, and choice E. So a trick to save time when you're doing sentence correction exercises is, if choice A is not correct, then hide the finger. If choice B is not correct, then hide the finger. If choice C is not correct, then hide the finger. And hide the fingers until you identify your correct answer. Guys, I can't believe it. We're done for today. Time went by super quickly. Has anybody got any final questions before I say goodbye to you? Well, thank you so very much. So you're the best. Thanks for the feedback. I love it. Nicolas, how is everything with you? All good?
Yeah, teacher, it's all good. You are an excellent teacher, and I have to study a lot.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Carol, all good?
Yes, all good. Thank you so much for your time. And I have one question. What happens if we fail to answer a question in the exam?
Come again.
What happens if we fail one question?
Well, guess what happens? Your score is not going to be as high if you make a mistake.
Yes.
So, yeah. Now, does the Gmat penalize you when you make a mistake?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do. And remember, when you make too many consecutive mistakes, what happens to the difficulty?
Decreases, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It goes down. Carla, do you have any questions?
No, that was all. Thank you for your time.
Sure, my pleasure. Leslie, do you have any questions?
No, everything is fine. I understand everything. Thank you.
So I wish you nothing but the best. I really hope that that you do great in the Gmat, right? It's a difficult test, so you have to try to make it fun for yourselves. Teaching Gmat is difficult for me, but I always try to make it fun, especially for my students, because I know Gmat is difficult. So we have to try and have a good time with it, right? I thank you all very much, and I might see you around. You take care of yourselves, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.